Hey everybody, it's your old pal Tom here on the Tom Gulley Show. Tonight, let me tell you about the unsolved disappearance of Jennifer Kesse. Now, of course, every Thursday we do a missing person or an unsolved crime of some sort, and some people might ask me why. Why do you do that? Well, there's a variety of reasons. Number one is, and this is the biggest reason, these people need to be found. And the information is out there. It always is. Countless times you read the paper, you read an online site, and you see that a 30, 40-year-old case has been solved. And that's because, and I'll keep saying this, I might put a T-shirt in our merchandise store that says this: somebody knows something. Always, always, somebody knows something. And so, regardless of how unsolvable one of these issues might seem, and regardless of how old it is, we'll keep talking about them. And I would also say, as a caveat, there are other programs, podcasts, shows, documentaries that will cover these much better than I can. I'm only one man. I don't think it matters. We have to keep the conversation going. And that's why we do it. And I'd like to say just one more thing. I don't think law enforcement has a bigger fan than me. Some people listening to this program may know that one of my very closest relatives happens to be a sheriff whose department was just involved in a nationally prominent missing persons case. I think by and large, law enforcement does an amazing job. But that being said, particularly on these older missing persons cases, sometimes things get dropped through the cracks. And when they do, I think it's fair to say so. I think it's also fair to say that as time goes by, practices and knowledge and procedures get better and better and better when things of this sort happen. So if I seem critical at some times, it's because, well, if only. I say that a lot with these cases also. If only. If only this had happened. If only that had happened. And that's the reason we do what we do. This, of course, is our cold open that we do for our amazing audio podcast listeners. However, this is a live streaming YouTube program, lots of interactivity, and to give people time to get into our interactive chat room, we talk a little bit. We also play a few songs. The songs are about me, so naturally I like them. If you're listening on our audio podcast and you don't care for them, just fast forward through them. Of course, if you're in your chat room now, live, you just have to listen to them. The first one's about me. It's the only one of the songs by our music director, Leon Kennedy, that doesn't mention my name, but it's about me. And the other one's got my name in it like 50 times or something, so it balances out. Anyway, here's a few songs, and when we return, let me tell you about the disappearance of Jennifer Kesse.
They said the night was crowded, too many voices in the room. Some burn bright for a moment, some fade out far too soon. I've watched the door swing open, I felt them close just as fast. You learn to mind your footing on a floor made out of glass. I've been counted out, I've been counted wrong. I've heard the doubts get loud and strong. When the lights go out and I play that song, I'm still on. I've had nights full of promise, I've had days that wouldn't end. Some chase the sound of thunder, some wait for trends to bend. I've seen the door swing wide open, I've seen them slam just as fast. You learn to move with some caution on a surface built to crash. Talk about the past, let them say it doesn't last. I don't need the wind forever, I just need to run one more mile, one more honest song. I've been counted up, I've been counted wrong. I've heard the doubts get loud and strong. Tom Gulley's back. Yeah, Tom Gulley's back. We're on the track. We're never off the track. Yeah. Tom Gulley's on the air. Doesn't take much. Yeah. Tom Gulley's on the air. Doesn't take much. Yeah. Tom Gulley Show is back. He's picking up the slack. Mike stays hot when Tom Gulley's in the chair. The people crowding round when he hits the air. From odd little tangents to the truth laid bare. Got the whole room nodding like yeah, yeah. All calls coming in, everyone gets in place. Yeah. Dancing all night with a smile on the face. He cuts through the noise, never chasing the race. Just Tom on the waves at a steady pace. Yeah, yeah, Tom's back. He's putting down the track. The Tom Gulley Show is back. He's putting down the track. Yeah, yeah, Tom's back. He's putting down the track. The Tom Gulley Show is back. He's putting down the track. From strange little moments to the things we all know. He lets it all breathe and he lets it all go. Laughter breaks through, then a pause, then a truth. From the good old days in a radio booth. Don't ask for facts, don't beg for proof. We dance in the dark to that gully groove. Yeah, yeah, Tom's back. He's laying down the facts. The Tom Gulley Show is back. He's laying down the facts. Yeah, yeah, Tom's back. He's laying down the facts. The Tom Gulley Show is back. He's laying down the facts. Oh yeah, yeah. Doesn't take much. Oh yeah, yeah. Doesn't take much. Oh yeah, yeah. Doesn't take much. Oh yeah. Tom's back. It doesn't take much. He's back. He's laying down the facts. Oh yeah, yeah. Doesn't take much. Oh yeah, yeah. Doesn't take much.
Hey everybody, what's going on? What's hot? What's hip? What's happening? What's shaking tonight? Let me tell you about the disappearance of Jennifer Kesse with some actually rather new news and some updates and some things that are making this a much more promising endeavor than perhaps it was just even a year ago today. We'll get into all of that and much more. A little intimidated because Team Brittany is in our chat room and she knows way more about this than I do. And I just today watched an amazing interview with Drew Kesse, Jennifer Kesse's father, that was done by some really, really great streamers from True Crime Unsolved. And the link to that interview is in our YouTube description. So, that being said, let's just ask you, please like, share, subscribe, retweet, notification bell, all of those absolutely free things you can do. They only cost a click to help our fledgling little show here with the algorithm, the almighty algorithm. Plus, we have super chats, we have memberships, gifted memberships, if you care to. There's plenty of stuff in our YouTube description, TomGulleyShow.com. There's curated podcasts there. Also, our merchandise store, all that kind of stuff. But the more important thing, two things, are the issue that we're going to talk about today, the disappearance of Jennifer Kesse, and what's going on in our interactive chat room, which we'll cover very quickly. Team Brittany, as I will mention, is here. She is a denizen of the internet, a mod on one of the big LawTube channels, and also someone that is intimately familiar with this case. And she says, thanks for covering this. No thanks necessary. She says every conversation about Jennifer is important. And she reiterates what I always say, someone knows something. She says someone always knows something. Chef is here. Everyone's in the kitchen. We're in the middle of a rush. He sent me some fabulous pictures, which I will have on the show at very, very soon. Ms. Hubie is here. She says 1960 Generation Jones is here. Good to know that. Team Brittany is asking what's being cooked tonight. They're cooking everything, I can tell you that, Team Brittany. She says, hit the like button, share it if you do the social media thing. Terry Nee says he comes here early for the tunes. Well, we will play the Terry Nee song on the outro of the show. Team Brittany says, Terry, I think some of the songs might be about Tom. That's always true. Always very true. Ms. Hubie says, this music's got soul and that we can make her dance. Well, you got to thank Leon Kennedy, our music director, for all that. Sky is here. Always good to see him. Team Brittany says, very hopeful. Please share the stream, guys. Yes, please, please do that. And now, without further ado, let me tell you about the disappearance of Jennifer Kesse. On January 3rd, 23rd or 24th, and by the way, just last Saturday, was the 20th anniversary of her disappearance, which is an important date, a very, very important date. Jennifer Kesse, a 24-year-old finance manager, disappeared from her home in Orlando, Florida. Her car was found about a mile away shortly afterward. Security footage captured an unidentified person of interest parking the vehicle and walking away. But this person couldn't be identified due to poor image quality. Remember, we're talking about many, many years ago. We're talking about 2006, when security cameras perhaps didn't have the image quality that we have today. Also, a fence obstructed the view partially. Here is portion of that security footage. And there was a lack of distinguishing features. Now, Jennifer's disappearance received both local and national media attention. No arrests have been made, and Jennifer's whereabouts remain unknown. In October of 2025, her father, Drew Kesse, announced that investigators had identified new DNA evidence, and significantly narrowed the pool of suspects. And the case is very, very much no longer considered a cold case. A little bit about Jennifer. Jennifer was a graduate of Vivian Gaither High School in Tampa, Florida, and she attended the University of Central Florida in Orlando and graduated in 2003 with a degree in finance. At the time she disappeared, Jennifer was working as a finance manager at Central Florida Investments timeshare company in Ocoee and had recently bought a condominium in Orlando. The weekend before she vanished, Jennifer vacationed with her boyfriend on St. Croix, U.S. Virgin Islands. And after returning on Sunday, she spent that night at her boyfriend's home, then drove straight to work on the morning of Monday, January 23rd, 2006. Jennifer was last known to be seen when she left work at approximately 6 p.m. on January 23, 2006. She spoke by phone with her father while driving home around 6:15 p.m. And then she spoke with her boyfriend at around 10 p.m. She was in the habit of texting or telephoning her boyfriend before leaving for work. So it was unusual when she did neither of those things the next morning, January the 24th. Her boyfriend's call went straight to her voicemail. Now, when Jennifer failed to arrive at work, her employer contacted her parents, who set out on the 2-hour drive from their home to hers. Jennifer's parents noticed that her car was missing, but they didn't see anything out of ordinary inside her condominium. A wet towel and clothes laid out, amongst other things, suggested that she'd showered, dressed, and prepared for work that morning. Friends and family distributed flyers about Jennifer that evening, and the Orlando police organized search parties on foot and on horseback, as well as by boat, helicopter, car, and ATV. So let's go over the timeline, shall we? We've got 6 o'clock. Jennifer leaves work and calls her parents. This is the last time her family had heard from her. She arrives home for the first time since having left for that vacation in the Virgin Islands. At 10 o'clock that night, the night of Monday, January 23rd, 2006, Jennifer and her boyfriend spoke by phone and said goodnight. And he is the last known person to speak with her before her disappearance. The next day, Tuesday, January 24th, 2006, from 7:30 to 8 o'clock a.m., Investigators initially believed that Jennifer was abducted as she was walking from her front door to her car. Now, they now believe that she left her condominium complex and was abducted at some point on her way to work. From 8 a.m. to 9 a.m., Jennifer's boyfriend, who she would normally call but didn't on this occasion, called her on her way to work, but that call went directly to voicemail. And he chalked it up to a meeting that she'd mentioned to him. His subsequent attempts were likewise unsuccessful. Jennifer's parents called him and informed him that she had failed to show up for work. At 11 a.m., alarmed at Jennifer's very uncharacteristic no-call, no-show behavior, her employer contacted her parents, and her parents began the drive from Tampa to Orlando. On the way, they called to ask the manager of her condominium to check her home with a spare key. And the manager reported that everything appeared normal inside, but that her car was missing outside. At noon, only 1.2 miles from Jennifer's home, surveillance cameras at an apartment complex recorded a person parking her car and walking away. The car and the footage were not discovered until 2 days later. And I'll just pause here to say, the person who's recorded at that time on that footage, if not the actual culprit, has to be complicit in all this. Someone who just found a free car lying along the road wouldn't return it sporadically to a nearby apartment complex. That doesn't make any sense. Thieves don't generally steal something, a car they know isn't theirs, and then just put it in an apartment complex somewhere. From 3 o'clock to 3 p.m., Jennifer's parents and brother arrived at her apartment. They find evidence that she'd been home that morning. They call the police. Since Jennifer was an adult, police initially felt that she may have left of her own volition. And I'm going to pause again here. How many cases from this era has the same thing happened? The default was always, and I could name 3 cases off the top of my head. I won't, but I could. Where police said, well, they're an adult. They probably just left on their own. And that seems to have been the default at that time. I'm hoping that now, in most, if not every police department, the default is, hey, we need to take this seriously as a missing or abducted person. I think in too many cases, vital information, witnesses, etc., may have gone by the wayside from lack of initiative, let's say. From 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock, family and friends saturate the area with flyers that show Jennifer's picture. The police send a detective to her home and begin interrogations and searches. I'd like to mention something else that I derived from the wonderful interview the brilliant guys at True Crime Unsolved did with Jennifer's father, Drew Kesse. He said that it was 3 years until the family's statements were taken, and that Jennifer's sorority sisters, a group of people she was intimately involved with in terms of socializing, discussions, conversations, those had never been taken. Close friends should always be interviewed, just to see if perhaps the missing person had said something of note or importance, it would seem to me. These are Jennifer's parents, by the way. On Thursday, January 26, 2006, at 8:10 a.m., seeing Jennifer's car on the news, a tenant of a nearby complex informs the police that her car has been sitting abandoned in front of their apartment for several days. Police confirm that it is Jennifer's 2004 Chevy Malibu. The vehicle is photographed and taken for forensic examination. Police examine local surveillance footage and discover that unidentified person on the surveillance footage parking the car and walking away. So the investigation begins. And I'll tell you more about that just as soon as I check our chat room. Johnny Books is here. He says, hit the like button. That would be nice. Team Brittany says, Jennifer took safety extremely seriously. Her parents taught this to her and her brother early in life due to their own personal experience of a home invasion robbery situation years earlier. She also says that Jennifer talked to family and friends every day. Team Brittany also says, and we'll cover this later as well, Rob, her boyfriend, is not involved. He was cleared very early in the case. And many times in cases like this, the people closest to the missing person are very motivated. You know, check me out. Look into everything in my background, because once you clear me, you can move on to the real person. Fishman is here. He says this kind of thing has become way too commonplace. And this is a 20-year-old case just last Saturday. Team Brittany says it has, and it's incredibly sad. Ryan says, name them, Gulley. Well, the Fort Worth 3, the Burger Chef murders, Breonna Maitland and Maura Murray. There. That's off the top of my head. Oh, the Springfield 3. There. All of which we've covered right here on this program. Crappy at Life has a $5 super chat. Thank you. But no, I'm sure Bruce Springsteen was not involved. And I think we can cross him off the list. Thank you. Why always? Anyway, but thank you for the donation, if nothing else. But yeah, that was unnecessary. Come on, man. Come on. Come on. But I don't know what to say. Fishman says it's time to follow someone, I don't know who he's referring to, lead and build giant prisons. Sucks, but it is what it is. Well, yeah. There are not enough prisons for him. Anyway, Bruce Springsteen aside, with no sign of forced entry or a struggle, investigators initially theorized that on the morning of January 24th, Jennifer left her apartment for work and locked her front door only to be abducted at some point while walking toward or getting into her car. On January 26th, as we mentioned, around 8:10 p.m., her black 2004 Chevy Malibu was found parked at another apartment complex about a mile from her own. And I believe this is the front of that apartment complex right here. Investigators discovered that the parking lot where the car was found was surveilled by several hidden cameras, which showed an unidentified person of interest dropping Jennifer's vehicle off at approximately noon the day she went missing. None of her family or friends recognized this person, whose physical features are just not clear on this security footage. Despite extensive camera coverage and multiple snapshots of the person of interest, the complex fencing surrounding the lot obscured the suspect's face. The FBI was called in to determine the person's size and gender, but they can only say that the person stood between 5'3" and 5'5". NASA also enhanced this video to help identify the suspect. A search dog, that's right, a search dog, tracked a scent that led from her parked car back to her apartment complex, prompting detectives to believe that the suspect might have returned to her apartment's parking lot after abandoning the car. No other evidence was found along the route. A forensic examination of the car yielded little in the way of evidence, only a latent print and a small DNA fiber. Investigators deduced that the car had been wiped down. Now, valuables were left inside the car, which caused detectives to rule out robbery as a motive, but the following items are known to be missing: her cell phone, her iPod, her keys, her purse, her briefcase, and the clothing she was wearing. Authorities were unable to ping her cell phone, its power remaining off. Her bank account key card has not been used since the disappearance. As is customary, investigators first questioned Kesse's immediate family and close friends, so-called, or so this says. I think there's a vast network of friends that were not questioned, but they wanted to see if any of them could have had a motive to abduct her. Her ex-boyfriend, recently upset and wishing to get back together with her, was also interrogated, but it was concluded that he had nothing to do with her abduction. Her current boyfriend was also questioned, but also eliminated as a suspect. At the time of her disappearance, Jennifer's apartment complex had been undergoing a major expansion, and many of the laborers on site were non-English speaking. And I'm going to pause a second to say, it's Orlando. Can you not, whatever language they speak, get someone to translate? I'll also say that sometimes people who can speak English may behave as if they can't in order to avoid questioning. This I've found in my own experience. Jennifer told family members on several occasions that the construction workers constantly catcalled, whistled at, and harassed her. Due to the language barrier, which I just don't think there's a language barrier, it's so easy. A city the size of Orlando, a tourist capital. I bet Walt Disney World has 10 people that can translate different languages of the world. But due to the so-called language barrier, investigators were unable to interrogate many of them. No other leads regarding them were discovered. And there is an issue here regarding certain police departments. We may get into it later. I won't get into it now. But toward the end, I think we probably will. Detectives then turned their focus to her place of employment and began questioning her coworkers. Her computer was taken for forensic examination, which revealed that a manager where she worked desired a relationship with her, but she had refused his advances because she was opposed to workplace relationships. Detectives interviewed this manager multiple times, but ultimately ruled him out as a suspect. Investigators and Jennifer's friends and family remain open to the theory that she fell victim to human trafficking, but consider it less likely than other possibilities. In May of 2007, Jennifer's company, led by David A. Siegel, offered a $1 million reward for information leading to her whereabouts with a July 4th deadline and the stipulation that she had to be alive. And this reward was obviously never claimed. A $5,000 reward for information leading to the whereabouts of her remains was available through Central Florida Crime Line. The case received state and national press attention at the time of her disappearance, and on May 2nd, 2008, just a couple years later, the Florida House of Representatives unanimously passed Senate Bill 502, the Jennifer Kesse and Tiffany Sessions Missing Persons Act. We'll cover Tiffany Sessions next week, to reform how missing person cases are handled in Florida. As of June 10th, 2010, the FBI took the case over from the Orlando Police Department, and it did so at the urging of Orlando Police Chief Val Demings. In 2018, Jennifer's parents filed suit against the Orlando Police Department to gain access to police records on the case. That lawsuit was settled in March of 2019, allowing the family access to 16,000 pages of records. And now might be a good time to mention, the Kesse family has been relentless in this investigation. They have refused to let the case go cold. They have done everything humanly possible to keep the search for Jennifer's whereabouts and to reveal what actually happened in the public eye and in the hands of law enforcement agencies that are motivated to solve this mystery. In December 2022, it was reported that the investigation into Jennifer's disappearance had been turned over to the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, the FDLE, and their cold case unit. The FDLE intends to interview people Jennifer's law enforcement team has already identified as possible suspects or people who may have valuable information, and to retest evidence that Jennifer's family says has never been retested. Jennifer is still considered missing and endangered by the Orlando Police Department, the FBI, the Orange County Sheriff's Office, the FDLE, the NCIC, National Crime Information Center, and Interpol. Jennifer also remains on the FBI's most wanted or missing list. Just this past May, on May 20th, coinciding with Jennifer's 44th birthday, the FDLE announced that they had gone through thousands of pages of documents and had also spoken to about 45 people since the case was turned over to their unit in December of 2022. They also announced that they have identified several persons of interest in Jennifer's disappearance and have stated that the case is no longer considered cold. The FDLE have also said that artificial intelligence may potentially be able to identify the person of interest seen on camera shortly after Jennifer's disappearance. On October 21st, 2025, it was announced by Jennifer Kesse's father, Drew Kesse, that the FDLE had found DNA within evidence that had not been previously tested, which contradicts the previous statement by the Orlando Police Department that DNA had only been found on the steering wheel at the time of Jennifer's disappearance. Drew Kesse also stated that the person of interest list had been greatly reduced and that they now have a better chance at finding Jennifer than in previous years. Let's go to some of the chat here and see what's here. I'm sure that Team Brittany has many astute observations here. Paused Up Patriot says, hey, Tom. Hey to you. Crappy at Life says, you're letting your love of his music blind you from the truth. No, I really don't think I am. And then says, fight me in real life. It's maybe not the time to be a wiseacre. Just a suggestion. Huntington on the Green. Yes, that's it. That's the other apartment complex, the one where her car was found and from whence came the security footage. Team Brittany says, Bo, the bloodhound, tracked from the car back to the entrance of Jennifer's condo. And her favorite new alligator skin shoes, also not found. Team Brittany says, side note, Jennifer was fluent in Spanish, so she could understand what the workers were saying about her. Positive Patriot says she could have gotten taken by someone like, well, maybe, I don't know. He says Epstein. I doubt that. Team Brittany says, Orlando Police Department also charged the Kesse family thousands of dollars for the records. Did they charge them for all of the copies? That's charming. Team Brittany says the block button is a beautiful thing. Well, I don't think Crappy at Life understands how seriously we take these issues, and he's generally a good guy, but come on, man. Please. All I can say is, come on, man. In 2020, Fox News investigates. Let me see if I've got some other visuals here. Let's see. I think I've shown that one. I think I've shown that one. Here's that street again. Huntington on the Green. The apartment complex where the footage and the car was located. In 2020, Fox News Investigates released a podcast on Jennifer's disappearance, House of Broken Dreams, the Jennifer Kesse story. And as I mentioned, and I can't say enough good things about the guys who I've never met, I don't know them, but True Crime Unsolved, they just glanced through their YouTube page, and wow, they're doing God's work. They really are. But on October 21st, 2025, Drew Kesse announced that a documentary team would be working on a television series relating to Jennifer's disappearance. The network providing the documentary will be announced in the near future, and the documentary is expected to be released in early 2026. So, with all that in mind, there were some, suspected mugshots, and I don't know that I should show them or not. Jennifer Kesse might be able to tell me a little bit more about these. This is one, maybe a person of interest, and this is another one, same person. I don't know that police have found this person, interviewed this person. I don't know anything more than that, but I did find it on a relevant page regarding this disappearance. So as we go down the list, the questions abound. Last time anyone spoke to her was 10 p.m. and then didn't show up for work at 8 a.m. That's, 10 hours. What happened during those 10 hours? The calls from her boyfriend went directly to voicemail, which of course means one of two things. Either she was on the phone, which seems unlikely because she might have taken the call and then switched back over, or she might have returned the call right after, or she might have texted back during the call. However, direct to voicemail many times means the phone's not on. It's just not on. Where did this happen? Did it happen between her front door and the car? Or did it happen somehow between getting in the car and her trip to work? Did she stop somewhere? We don't know. We don't know. I know the police have narrowed down, the Florida Department of Law Enforcement have narrowed down the list of suspects. But was it one of the people at this particular job site? If so, much like the Jody Huisentruit mystery, did anyone see anything? I haven't seen in this particular case that all of the apartments were interviewed. I'm assuming they were to see if anyone heard or saw anything, but I haven't seen that anywhere. And I have to ask the question. I'm assuming they were or did, but haven't heard anything. Now, while this photo is blocked by the fencing from the security footage, we can still tell a few things. The FBI says this person's between 5'5" and 5'7". And I assume they've done that from an angle of the security camera, distance from the edge of the sidewalk, relation to the fence in terms of view. But you can tell a little of what's being worn there. Some distinctive shoes, white clothing. Something can be determined from this video. Did anyone see that? Were all the people who worked on that particular job site shown that picture? When did they interview the people at the job site? Was it the same day? Was there anyone missing that day who was supposed to work? These are all just questions that I'm asking off the top of my head. And I just don't buy this excuse of language barrier. I am really sorry. I live right here in Dallas, Texas. Obviously a bigger city than Orlando. But I did live in Tampa. And I know for certain there are people that a police department can call. You could call the local university that has, foreign language studies. You can call the local, German restaurant or something. I mean, to get a German speaker, to get a Russian speaker, to get certainly in Orlando and in Tampa, not only can you find people that speak Spanish fluently, as Jennifer did, but I know those police departments have officers that speak fluent Spanish. Team Brittany says, yes, they charged them, Tom. I had to request records from an institution one time that I was not being dealt with properly, and they wanted to charge me as well. And I think they're still waiting to get paid. They sent me the documents with like this invoice. And I'm like, you're not getting anything from that. Yeah. Team Brittany says they have done an incredible job, True Crime Unsolved. They really have. Shout out to them. Team Brittany says Jennifer always answered calls from her parents. This was a rule since age 16. Fishman says, thank God it hasn't gotten as bad here as it is in the UK, where the police have literally covered up grooming gangs for years. Well, the one thing I would say about the UK, Fishman, in the bigger cities especially, the UK was number one, way out in front with security cameras. And number two, they had them everywhere. And I mean everywhere. And Team Brittany says that's sad, and it is. Team Brittany says lots of the workers may have been illegals in the USA. Many left in the days following Jennifer's disappearance. I would imagine so. Even if they had nothing to do with it, just the presence of police probably would have driven them away. Filet of fish says the world may never know. Well, let's hope not. Strober Doble says, whoa, Gulley. Team Brittany says it's bizarre not to have a translator in any PD. What's even more bizarre, Brittany, is if someone is Hispanic speaking, that's a layup in Orlando, Florida. But as I mentioned, Orlando, Florida is a huge tourist area. Even back then, I don't think Universal Studios was there, but I know Walt Disney World and you had Busch Gardens in Tampa. It would have been very easy to get a German, a Russian, a Czechoslovakian, a French, and go down the list. They have people for that. Also, once you say, and I've seen police do this before, to get to the heart of a missing person or in a straight up murder case, they will just say to people that are illegal, we're not here for that. We're not going to do anything to you about that at this juncture. Okay? We want to know what you saw. Even, didn't the OJ case have some lady that was a housekeeper or something? I mean, wasn't it? Randy says the rush is over at the Skyline Club in Indianapolis. When in Indianapolis, dine at the Skyline Club. Oh, wait, you can't unless you're a member or a member takes you as a guest. Worth becoming a member, though. My boss was a member, so. Team Brittany says Universal was there, and Disney, obviously, and people came from all over the world to visit. It's insane, they said, sorry, no translator was available. I think that is really dropping the ball. Really dropping the ball. I'm sorry. It just is. It just is. And I think what you do is on the day you show up with 10 detectives and you don't let anybody leave. And then, who's missing? Anybody that's missing gets put way up high on the list. But getting a translator, ich spreche Deutsch, somebody. Like I said, call the local university or high school even. Call the embassy, somebody, something. At any rate, like, share, subscribe, retweet, notification bell. It won't cost you a penny. And I will say in the interview that the guys at True Crime Unsolved did, it's in the description. Hopefully somebody check that. I think I got the link in there properly. It's in the description of our YouTube program. Jennifer's father, Drew Kesse, did seem much more upbeat. He seemed very, very happy about the fact that the FDLE had taken over, that they were far more motivated, they were far more aggressive, and truthfully, technology has progressed, and it needed a fresh set of eyes, a fresh discovery, a fresh everything. Team Brittany says, yes, in the OJ case, they did. Team Brittany says, I speak Spanish. If I'd have known that was the excuse, I would have done it. But that excuse came way later. And was the language Spanish that was the holdup? Who knows? Could have been another language, I suppose. South Florida, mixing pot. I would assume it was Spanish in some measure. And I know for a fact there are Spanish-speaking officers on the OPD. Language barrier. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? In this day and age, Google Translate, for crying out loud. I know that was around in 2006. Team Brittany says, yes, the link works, Tom. And she also says it was Spanish. Now see, that is reprehensible. Reprehensible in Orlando, Florida. Anywhere in Florida. But in Orlando, Florida, you're going to use language as the barrier when the language is Spanish? I'm sorry. That's just wrong. It's just completely wrong. Completely wrong. But somebody knows something. And hopefully this mystery will be solved and solved soon. Her family deserves it. I am Sky. Let's not bring politics into it. Do I need to say Marco Rubio? Come on, man. There's Spanish-speaking people on both sides of the aisle. And you know this. You're a smart guy. You're an intelligent man. Anyway, that's really all I can tell you about this particular disappearance. I wish I could tell you more. And as I mentioned those podcasts and there's a million YouTube sort of short documentaries about this case that do a far better job than I of describing everything that's happened. Team Brittany, I am Sky, sorry I had to. I know. Team Brittany can do a fine job of it, I'm sure. I should have had her on as a guest maybe, but hopefully we will get closure on this in the interest of her family and justice very soon. Fishman says FBI crime statistics get the best of us sometimes. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Jennifer, by the way, 5'8", not someone you're likely to mistake. But it is comforting to know that progress has been made on this case. Comforting to know that the family is much more positive about what's going on and the progress that's being made. So next week we will cover Tiffany Sessions. On Sunday we will discuss the radio and television show Gunsmoke. I may do a show Saturday. I may go crazy and do a show tomorrow. And I don't do Friday. I better not do that. I don't do Friday shows. I just don't do Friday shows. But please like, share, subscribe, notification bell, and let's get the word out about Jennifer. Somebody knows something. They always do. They always do. And we can hopefully look forward to the solution of this disappearance sooner rather than later. But I'll again say, this era, Maura Murray, Brianna Maitland, all the others I mentioned, in the case of the Burger Chef murders, they thought it was a robbery on the part of the employees, so they wiped down the entire crime scene. Cleaned it up. Cleaned it off. Completely. The Springfield 3, kind of the same thing. In addition to family and friends going into the house, searching around, cleaning up, wiping up shards of glass, doing all sorts of stuff. But there's too many cases of, this could be just somebody who's just run off. That shouldn't be the default. Worst case scenario should be the default. It really should. At least an investigation. Team Brittany says, anyone in the Tampa Clearwater area this weekend, come on out to the Pirate Parade. First person to find me gets a prize. Is that the Guava Ween? Is that, or is it just a Pirate Parade? Fishman says, may the sicko that took her spend the rest of his life in the worst possible conditions. Thank you, Fishman. Team Brittany says, Maura Murray haunts me. And the Maura Murray case, very similar to Breonna Maitland. And not too much further away. And both cases where, well, I guess she just went off by herself. Probably just ran away. Probably just a drunk driver. And the Breonna Maitland case, the trooper that found the car said, I think it was just a drunk driver, but they didn't bother contacting Breonna's mother, who the car was registered to, for 5 days. Had it in the lockup. Terry Nee says, Gasparilla days. I got you. Gasparilla days. I remember them well. At any rate, that's all I got for this one. Except we do need to do one thing real quickly. Before we close, there's something we got to do.
Sits in the chat like he paid a fee. Shades indoors, who can he see? Acts the name, he points at me like, come on now, I'm Terry Nee. Head full funk, 0 degree. Smooth brain, confidence, guilt-free. You ask again, he shrugs carefree. Buddy, I'm Terry Nee, he's Terry Nee. Who's Terry Nee? He's Terry Nee. Who's Terry Nee? Say it once, say it twice with me. That's the whole damn song. Terry Nee.
It's a tradition. It's a tradition. Let's see here. Terry Nee says Ray DeVito. Well, Ray DeVito has been, I don't want to get into that. Team Brittany says, thanks, Tom. Please share, like, subscribe. Terry Nee, where's the car? Not far, near the bar. Terry Nee says, it's me. Who's Terry Nee? Who is Terry Nee? Who is Terry Nee? Saturday, I don't know. I could take suggestions on a show to do. I was thinking maybe I'd do a members only show and we'd listen to Gunsmoke. You know Gunsmoke? You guys know Gunsmoke, don't you? Sure you do. Hold on. Gunsmoke. Yeah, here we go. Do the Gunsmoke. Hold on. Anyway, we might listen to some of that. We just might. I don't know. Let's see here. Team Brittany says, my dad adored Gunsmoke. The radio version of Gunsmoke is so incredible. I think it would be cool on Saturday to do a listen along to maybe 1 or 2 episodes. Team Brittany says, Tom, we got to get you some Beats headphones. Why Beats? These are awesome. I got awesome headphones. I like these headphones. Fishman, this is Sony. Fishman says Ray Gun and Cloud, which I endorse wholeheartedly. Anyway, I think that's all I got for tonight. If you've got suggestions for Saturday, let me know. I will do a Saturday show, Saturday at 3 p.m. Eastern. It might just be listening to an episode or 2 of Gunsmoke. It might be something else. I don't know. Team Brittany says, but I'll be with the Pirates. Well, you can listen to it later. Anyway, I need to get a different song up here for the outro, I think, probably. You guys heard that one already. I don't think there's going to be any requests. Let me tell you about the groove. People like that one. Let me tell you about the groove. It's a toe tapper. Let me tell you. All right, we'll put that right there. Anyway, that old clock on the wall says, Fishman says those old radio shows could be put to video. My AI. There's so many of them. There's 600 Gunsmokes. Anyway, that old clock on the wall says it's time for me to amscray. Team Brittany says that's a fantastic idea, Fishman. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. And with all that being said, I think the only thing left to say is, until next time, we'll see you next time.